I want to welcome everyone to a regularly scheduled meeting of the Waterville City Council. We are going to start off by saying the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just so everyone knows, the mayor is not going to be at the meeting tonight, which is why I'm running the meeting. The next item would be disclosure of conflict of interest. Does anybody have a conflict of interest with any item on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, I would take a motion for the approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
And for the new counselors, the consent agenda it's basically things that are considered, regular business of the city. It's like ratifying, payroll accounts and things like that. It's generally things that we let the city manager and Patty, oversee without a lot of discussion. If there's anything in the consent agenda that anyone wants to raise issue about, they can always do that. But these are items to speed along business that we approve as a group. So we have a motion on the floor and a second. Is there any discussion about the consent agenda? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call.
Council Morris?
Yes.
Council Oliveira?
Yes.
Council Foss?
Yes.
Council Frankie?
Yes.
Council Thomas?
Yes.
The vote is 5 in favor and 0 opposed.
At this point, I'm going to make a motion to take all of the items on the agenda by title only.
Seconded.
We'll take a roll call on that.
Yep.
Right?
Council Morris?
Yes.
Council Oliveira?
Yes.
Council Foss?
Yes.
Council Frankie?
Yes.
Council Thomas?
Yes.
The vote is 5 in favor and 0 opposed.
So we're going to take up Resolution 212-2020.
A resolution providing for appropriation of FEMA reimbursement.
Move to adopt.
Second.
I'd like to make a motion that we postpone this indefinitely.
Second.
I can provide a quick explanation, please. There was a second, right?
Yep.
Yeah. We talked about using the FEMA money, FEMA reimbursement, to provide funds for an extra police officer. Well, the one that we talked about hiring in January. Well, in fact, the police budget already had that amount built into the budget.
Yep.
So we don't need to take these funds and apply it to that. You're going to see this same item again at the next meeting because we do have to have an order accepting the FEMA reimbursement, and it's $86,000 some odd dollars. We submitted a reimbursement request, I think, in the amount of 98, and they approved everything except about $8,000 or $12,000. So at your next meeting, there'll be an order to accept the FEMA reimbursement. That money will probably go right into surplus, because when you made the decision back in the spring to take $150,000 for expenses, pandemic expenses, that money came out of surplus. So the reimbursement will go back.
Any other discussion about the motion to table indefinitely? All right, we'll have a roll call.
Council Morris?
Yes.
Council Oliveira?
Yes.
Council Foss?
Yes.
Council Frankie?
Yes.
Council Thomas?
Yes.
The vote is 5 in favor and 0 opposed.
And we'll move on to Ordinance 238-2020.
An ordinance providing for amendment to zoning airport solar project.
Move to adopt.
Second. Any discussion?
The only thing that I had is this came into the box this afternoon from a Kim Haley. Looks like she's a resident on Gray Street, and asking to describe any impact that the proposed solar farm will have on the inland and Pinewood trails. Could the Canyon Trail be altered, perhaps, or such a usurped usurp, I don't know,
Usurp.
and any other such crosswinds, jet stream, etc. So I don't know if
Yep.
we want to address that.
Yes, yeah, because it's been a topic of conversation at the Solar Committee. So in fact, the development there will impact to a little degree the trails, but the developer of the solar facility has pledged to rebuild the trails, relocate if necessary. And I know the Solar Committee was very pleased. They went up for a site visit with a representative from the solar company, and I think everything was, they were happy with what was decided for any mitigation. I know Council Frankie was involved, I think, with the Solar Committee on that. I don't know if there's anything, Claude, that you want to add?
Yes, I went up with the developer. We walked the area that's where the panels, solar panels, are going to be, and what it amounts to is there's a trail that runs kind of along the airport fence, and that trail will have to be adjusted a little bit. It winds back and forth and kind of connects all the other trails. But the developer said that they're going to put everything together so that the trail system will remain connected. I think it'll be okay. They did also make adjustments for in their site for some of the wetlands that they discovered. So I think they've done a pretty good job of addressing people's concerns about the impact on the trails and the area.
Rick?
Mike, did we get that in writing from the solar developer as far as the willingness to move that trail?
Sure, yes, we can. I was stopping to think if it was already in the lease
Yeah.
for the land. It
Is
may
it
already
in
be
writing
in the
yet, or
lease.
will it be put in writing? I just don't want to take any chances on them going, oh, well, we did say that.
Yeah. No, we can certainly get that in writing.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion from the council?
How much acreage is being cleared for this?
Total acreage,
It looks like 22 acres.
22 acres.
22.
That's what's to be rezoned. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's the footprint of the facility.
Right.
Any other questions? I assume we don't have anyone from the public on
No,
this?
just the one that I haven't seen anything. I mean, I don't know if anybody else is here for that.
All right, seeing no more discussion, we'll move to a roll call.
Council Morris,
Yes.
Council Olivera,
yes,
Council Foss,
Yes.
Council Frankie,
Yes,
Council Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 5 in favor and 0 opposed.
Moving on to Order 240-2020.
An order providing for sale of lot in Airport Road subdivision.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Now, this is the lot that, and someone from Lost Legends is with us tonight via Zoom. So if there are any questions of the buyer, we can ask him. This is a property that, we've talked about a number of times. It's going to involve a marijuana grow operation on lot 50-1.
Any questions from the council? Anyone from the public?
Well, is the electrical infrastructure down that road sufficient for their needs? I guess it must be.
Yes, it is.
How large is your operation?
We're at tier 2 right now, so we have a 2,000 square foot canopy, 8 to 9,000 square foot building to start, and then we'll be going up to a tier 3, 7,000 square foot canopy to about an 18,000 square foot building.
And so that lot is right on the freeway there. Do you have First of all, that's going to be strictly a grow facility, or are you going to have,
Just a grow facility.
and what type of signage is going to be visible from the freeway at that site?
We might not have any signage visible from the freeway.
Any other
We
questions?
haven't gotten to that hurdle yet, I guess I should say.
And is this an expansion of your operation, or are you relocating?
This is a brand new business starting in Waterville, Maine.
Any other questions from the council? All right, we'll move to a roll call.
Council Morris,
Yes.
Council Olivera,
Yes.
Councilor Foss,
Yes.
Councilor Frankie,
Yes.
Councilor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 5 in favor and 0 opposed.
Moving on to new business, resolution 243-2020.
A resolution providing for canvassing of votes and determination of the result of the special municipal election held on November 3, 2020.
Move to adopt.
Second. Any discussion?
I would fill in the blanks because the resolution had all zeros in it because when the agenda was made, we didn't have the results of the election. So I can read the results of these 3 races.
Okay.
So for Ward 3, City Council, Clepac, Thomas Ethan, 1,010 votes, 0 overvotes, 256 undervotes for a total of 1,266 votes cast. Ward 1, Board of Education, Helm, Patricia, 771 votes, 0 overvotes, 203 undervotes for a total of 974. And Ward 5, Board of Education, Krigbaum, Spencer Lee, 982 votes, 0 overvotes, 310 undervotes for a total of 1,292.
So do we have to offer an amendment?
Yeah.
So I would offer an amendment to insert the numbers that Patty just read for those
Second.
elections.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll take a vote on the roll call on the amendment. This
Yeah.
is just on the amendment.
Yes. Council Morris,
Yes.
Councilor Olivera,
Yes.
Councilor Foss,
Yes.
Councilor Frankie,
Yes.
Councilor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 5 in favor and 0 opposed.
Now we'll move that resolution as amended.
Seconded.
Any discussion on the resolution? Seeing none, we'll move to a roll call.
Council Morris,
Yes.
Councilor Olivera,
Yes.
Councilor Foss,
Yes.
Councilor Frankie,
Yes.
Councilor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 5 in favor and 0 opposed.
And we'll swear, now we're going to swear.
Yep,
We're
I
going to
can
swear you
administer
in,
the oath.
Tom, and then you're officially a city councilor, so the rest of the agenda you'll be able to vote on.
Mr.
Great.
Klepak, can you raise your right hand, please, and repeat after me? I, Thomas Klepak,
I, Thomas Klepak,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully discharge,
that I will faithfully discharge,
to the best of my abilities,
to the best of my abilities,
the duties incumbent upon me
the duties incumbent upon me
as a member of the Waterville City Council
as a member of the Waterville City Council
for the City of Waterville.
in the city of Waterville.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Welcome to the city council. The city clerk and the city manager will be in touch with you. There'll be an orientation with the city attorney, and some other things, just so you know all the legalese and stuff. But welcome to the council, and we look forward to having you. This was for a special election, so when is that ward up for?
That
2 years,
was,
I think.
2 years?
let's see. I think it was a 2-year term, yes.
Three?
It's not a 3-year term because it's a special, it's a partial term because it's a special election.
Right, because he's
It's
coming
a
in.
remainder of a
He's
term.
coming after the-
He's in Megswood, right?
Right,
Yeah,
yes, so
Ward
this is
three.
for the remainder of Meg's term.
Yeah.
Isn't that just next year? Didn't she run with me?
Meg had to run, it's so
Oh,
mixed,
that's right.
it's
Yeah,
so
right,
mixed
right,
up
right.
because there's been so much.
You're right.
turnover
Yeah,
that
she's right.
I don't know which
Yep.
ones are special elections.
You're
and
right.
which ones are. But moving on to resolution 245-2020,
244.
244-2020,
A
sorry.
resolution providing for acceptance of bid for airport snow removal equipment.
Move to adopt.
Second. Mike?
Yeah, Randy Marshall, our airport manager, is here also. You know, this is something we've been waiting for a long time, and it is to replace a very, very old, antiquated piece of equipment. So this brings us into the modern age in terms of snow removal. And I am sorry, we should have probably have noted in the resolution the source of the funding, that it's partially, well, is this coming all from our bond issue?
It is going to come from our bond, and we are planning to seek reimbursement in 3 years when we build enough entitlement funding from the FAA. So we are hoping to get 95% reimbursed. It's not a guarantee.
Can you guys hear Randy?
Everybody hear it okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Yep, okay.
Yeah, is it possible to have someone email me the agenda? I never received that agenda, and so I'm just sort of, it's just going all by hearing. I have nothing in front of me.
Jay's going to send it to you right now.
Yep.
And so just to clarify, the original money to buy this piece of equipment is going to come from a bond that the council approved earlier this year. Though we are hopeful that we'll be able to seek reimbursement for the federal government for 95% of the cost of this piece of equipment.
Randy, was this the 2020 bond or 2019 bond?
It's the one that we just
Did this September?
yeah.
Okay,
yeah. So we asked for 450, so those came in under budget.
okay.
Do we have plans for the rest of the bond money then?
That's something I need to talk further about with Randy, so no, we don't have immediate plans, but at some point we're going to have to reconcile that amount.
And so new counselors know bond money is earmarked for a certain expenditure, and if we don't spend it all in that expenditure, generally speaking, it has to be spent in basically a similar way. So it would have to be for some it might be stretched to be used at Public Works.
Yes, I think so. If it's right, if it's for equipment, I don't think that the bond people would give us any trouble about whether we spend at the airport equipment or Public Works.
Equipment is equipment, right? I mean, what do they care what we do with it?
Plus, we had Public Works equipment also on the lineup of items, so we're just moving leftover funds from one account to another. I know Randy's not going to want to see that, but I'll talk with him about what he needs further, and then he and I can come back to you at some point.
Any questions from the council? And for new counselors, if you'd like to speak, please just raise your hand, and then I'll recognize you before you speak. Any comments from the council? All right, we'll move to a roll call.
Council Morris,
Yes.
Council Olivera, Council Klepak,
Yes, yes.
Council Foss,
Yes.
Council Frankie,
Yes,
Council Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Moving on to Resolution 245-2020.
A resolution providing for selection of airport consultant, notice to proceed, and application for grant.
Move to adopt.
Second. Do we just want to have a quick explanation of this, Mike?
Right, Randy, I'm going to let you explain this consultant thing because we go through it every few years. You'll have to come to the mic, Randy.
So some of the counselors may recall that we went out for selection earlier this spring and had selected Stantec Consulting to be our consultant. This is something that we're required to do every 5 years, and that was on schedule. We completed this year's project, and leading up to the project, we ran into some issues with completing certain tasks on time. With the dissatisfaction and discussion with the state and the FAA, we opted to go back out to select another consultant with concerns of our next project that's coming up. We have a very tight timeline, and there's a lot of demand of the consultant, and I just did not have the confidence in our prior consultant to complete the job. So we did go back out. We selected McFarland Johnson in a competitive process, and that's where we're at tonight. The Notice to proceed would give them the ability to design and engineer the project and get us prepared to apply for the grant.
Any questions from the council? All right, seeing none, we'll move to a roll call.
Counsel Morris,
Yes.
Counsel Olivera,
Flavia?
Yes.
Counselor Klepak,
Yes.
Counselor Foss,
Yes.
Counselor Frankie,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Moving to ordinance number 246-25.
An ordinance providing for amendment to streets and sidewalks ordinance.
Move to adopt.
Second.
So we passed out a revised copy. Hopefully you have that most recent one that Matt would have distributed at the beginning of the meeting. I apologize if those of you on Zoom, you probably didn't get the most recent copy. It was finalized this afternoon around 4, and I'm sorry, I should have forwarded it to you. This change in the winter parking is a result of quite a few discussions that Matt, our Public Works Director, has had with me and Chief Massey. And it's all about the Public Works Department being able to do their job in an efficient and safe way during the winter with snowstorms. Having vehicles on the road makes that job much, much harder. But this does represent a deviation from the way we have been doing things in the past. Well, actually, we switched a few years ago to a situation where vehicles can be left on the road overnight on Waterville streets if there's no threat of winter conditions. No snow, no ice coming. We don't have to go out. We don't have to sand or plow. Cars don't get ticketed. But it's resulted in many times, because weather is not always 100% predictable, where cars have been left out because people thought it's not going to snow or rain or ice. And in fact, it does. And now we've got a difficult job. So this would bring us back to where we were. I don't know how many years ago we had a total prohibition.
That's 3 years ago.
Oh, it was only 3 years.
Yes, just 3 years ago.
So 3 years ago, the situation was that there was no overnight parking on streets in Waterville, except some in the downtown area. So we're proposing, Matt is proposing to go back to that same regulation we had 3 years ago.
I'll recognize myself first. What have we been doing for enforcement the last 3 years? So if we get a snowstorm, you find somebody's car is parked where it's not supposed to be, do we just give them a ticket? Do we have them towed? What have we been doing?
We have been doing both of those. If in fact they were in violation of the current winter parking ban, which prohibits the car from parking in such a manner that it interferes with the snow plowing, then the police ticket it and we tow it. So we work with Public Works crew at night and actually detail an officer out and try to eliminate the time that their trucks are sitting there while we're moving these vehicles out of their way.
Do we
Everybody hear them okay?
do we have a standing relationship and a procedure with the tow truck companies when this happens? Like, are we in touch with them, like, weather's coming, we anticipate we're gonna have to tow people? Because obviously if we're gonna tow people, we wanna do it in a timely manner so that they're out of the way.
Well, we have a policy for record services that want to get on what we call the police record service list, and they have to meet certain standards. They have to have so many records. They have to have two-way communications, and some other guidelines they must meet. So they're on call. One record's on call for this week, the next record the following week, and they just rotate through. So they're all familiar with winter towing.
And then my last question, then I'll open it up to the rest of the council. Do you have any, I think I'd be particularly concerned about the south end, because there's, limited parking down there. In lots of cases, the only place to park is in the street. So do we have concerns about the south end or any other neighborhoods where this might, you know, impose more of a burden than other neighborhoods where people have off-street parking.
Well, probably the best way I can answer that, give you just a quick history. When the current winter parking ban was adopted, the thought process behind that was just prohibiting them parking when they're in the way of snow plowing, was to give residents and businesses an opportunity to use the streets to park, especially if they had special events at their home or their businesses. Unfortunately, what's happened over these last 2 or 3 years is that I think a lot of people got used to the idea where they could park on the street and then would not pay attention to pending storms, and so they would leave their cars out there in violation of the parking ban, and then that would prohibit efficient snow plowing from Public Works. They'd have to stop, they'd have to call the police, we'd have to get down there, we'd have to tow the cars. So we've seen that increasing over the years, that we simply had more people parking on the street and not paying attention to the parking ban. So to make that more efficient and more safe, we changed it now to you can't park on the streets at all during December 1st, April 30th, between 12 a.m., 12 midnight, and 6 a.m. So it's a blanket parking ban for the whole city. There'd be likely more cars in the south end because it's so dense, but we were really looking at not holding up Public Works crews with all that machinery sitting there while the police are running around trying to find either the owners or else putting a ticket on it and hauling it.
Rick?
Mike, Patty, how are you going to, if we pass this tonight, how are you going to put that out to the public so that they are aware of the change?
It's going to be put out on Public Works page, city page, Facebook page. We'll advertise it best we can.
We would expect the Sentinel to cover it too. I think that the newspaper would be.
Expect or actually do?
We'll reach out to the Sentinel.
Every year, 2 weeks prior to the parking ban going into effect, December, we give all our officers warning tickets. And so for 2 weeks while they're out there doing routine patrol, they put those warnings on every single car. We put it on our Facebook page, we put it on our web page, we put it on the city web page. We have the Morning Sentinel put an article in the paper, and we've done this for the last 30 years that we advertise, have it well advertised before it goes in effect December 1st.
Just don't want 100 people calling back going, hey, we plenty of avenues B in there.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I'm looking for, so. Okay.
Patty, Mike, do we do, I'll get you into in just a second, Claude. Do we do any paid advertising for this kind of thing on Facebook, for example? Like we could, I mean, for $50, you could get it out to everybody in the city.
Any ordinance that changes, we're required to put an advertisement in the legal section of the newspaper, so we do that routinely. That's part of our process. But as far as paid advertisements, we generally don't do that as a rule.
We have done it though. I know that Amanda did it a few times. I forget what the issue was or the interest item was, but we did pay to put ads on. Yes, we did.
Councilor Frankie?
Isn't this a matter of the tail wagging a dog? You've got a few scofflaws around who don't move their cars when it snows, and as a result, we're going to lay the heavy hand of police enforcement on the people who have been obeying the law. It seems to me that we've made it easier to park in Waterville in the wintertime, and now we're going to make it harder. That seems to be a step backward to me.
Well, right, and I know, I mean, you know, I've been in Portland a couple of times when they have put in a parking ban, and down there, for example, I believe they have a deal with all the public, with the garages, you know, so that people can get their cars off the street. So I guess that's my only concern. If we have, I know there are certain, like West Street, for example, there are places where there's substantial on-street parking all the time. And you know, are these people, it's one thing if every now and then when there's a snowstorm, you have to figure something out, you know, and it's a pain in the butt, but if we're gonna do it to them every night, where are these people gonna park?
I think the
Well,
idea
I
of buying
can't-
some ads on Facebook is a good idea. I think we're going to do that.
Well, I guess, I mean, Matt, you know this, you know, better than anybody, but, I mean, I guess, why wait for, like, the police to come and, you know, like, why would my truck stop to wait for a record, so this guy moves his car, and then you just keep going, like, why don't you just go around it, notify, then come, and then just...
There's so many instances, Counselor, where the streets are so narrow that sometimes we can't even get by. It's completely inefficient for a public works department to work a storm when there's parking on the street. You'll be hard pressed to find any community. I mean, all communities are different. You can't compare them all the same, but I'm gonna say 80 to 90% of the municipalities in the state have a parking ban similar to this. Some of them, again, I won't get into all the variations, but this is a completely reasonable plan for our department to be run safely, efficiently, and professionally. Because if we have to keep going back 2 or 3 days to wait for a car to leave, then the snow is building up around the car. It becomes a even bigger area. And then, I mean, what if there's an emergency where fire or emergency personnel have to get in? It's the number one topic when I became director that the crew, the public works crew and the supervisors are begging for this, because the last 3 years have been, for lack of a better word, a nightmare with cars parked on the street. And thankfully, Chief Massey has been on board the whole way, supporting this. You know, I'm not trying to just make it convenient for us. I'm not trying to push more work on another city department. I'm just saying that it's a complete, and again, we don't have a solution for the folks in the South End. We do have the concourse, we do have downtown, we do have Hatta Falls, we do have a fair amount of parking, and it is inconvenient, but it's Maine, and it snows, and we've got to get cars off the street.
Well, and I understand, and, you know, certainly during a storm, but to, you know, I don't know, to put this burden on people every day from November and through...
From 12 to 6. Yeah, I mean,
Well, right, but
it's not.
that's when you're parking your car.
Yeah,
at your house.
Again, I can't solve that problem. I don't have the solution.
Tom?
Yeah. If you could, I lived in Waterville for 8 years, but I've never personally had to deal with this issue. If you could enlighten me as to what the impetus was originally for the shift 3 years ago. Just by way of trying to gauge what the public response is going to be if we make the shift.
Well, I think Chief Massey alluded to it before, where we gave it a shot. You know, and it just became, Counselor, it just became, people got too comfortable with it, and it's just gotten so bad that they park on the street every night, and when we have storms.
No, not for why we want to get back. I'm saying what caused the shift in the first place. Was there a significant push from the community to change the parking regulation 3 years ago, to liberalize it the way that it happened? Or where did the impetus come for the shift?
The thought behind the shift was because we were getting so many complaints from people who were receiving manner that interfered with the snow plowing. So when that didn't happen, they could park on the streets. And so we thought that might be a solution and that it might work well for everyone. But what happened is it turned into you know, an issue where more people got so used to parking on the streets that they wouldn't even pay attention to storms. So if they got a ticket during the storm, they'd come to the station and say, I don't understand why I got this ticket. I've been parking out there for the last 10 nights because we didn't have any snow plowing, and now, you know, it started snowing at 2 o'clock in the morning, and you gave me a darn ticket, and you parked my car, and you towed my car. So between that and the inefficiency that Public Works was running into, and the time we also spent, we thought we needed to go back to a more efficient, a more safe parking, winter parking ban, which is to simply ban all the vehicles from parking on the street from December 1st to April 30th from 12 midnight to 6 a.m.
I have a question.
And if I can follow up, and how is this increased load going to impact your night shifts, Chief?
Well, we're hoping that once...
Will it be an increased load? Do you actually see it? Are you going to have less work enforcing this now?
Well, we're hoping it's going to be less work once we publicize the new parking ordinance that will go in effect, and that people will realize that I can't park on the street at all. Instead of guessing, you know, can I park tonight? Is it going to snow? Are they going to haul snow? It'll just be a blanket winter parking ban that will prevent anyone from parking on the street during that time period. So I'm hoping that it'll be less work for us and more efficient and safer for Public Works.
One quick question, then I think, Mike, did you still have something? Chief, how much does it cost somebody right now? I mean, they have to pay for the tow, but how much is the fine? How much do you think it costs somebody if they get a ticket and get their car towed right now because they're parked during a snowstorm?
About $130.
Councilor Morris?
Just for a point of communication, the new lights that we purchased, I'm assuming there's probably not any type of dome light on it that we can light up. Do we have any options on the lighting on the street lights that we can change something to, you know, to indicate a parking ban? You know, some of them they can dim automatically, they can turn off, and that, like, do we have any ability on these lights that would set them apart when we want to put a parking ban in place? Do we know?
Yeah, I don't know.
None that I know of.
I wouldn't want to speak too fast because I know there are a lot of options with those lights.
That's why I'm asking. I mean,
Right.
do we have any of those abilities to incorporate, hey, you know what, we can have people, you know, I mean, I don't know.
So as if we weren't going to accept this, but we would rather go with a plan where the lights flash around town when we don't want people parking on the street? That's what you're saying?
Well, I don't want to make it like a disco.
That would be like every light in Waterville.
No. Well, I mean,
I think the question is, is there any way in which we communicate to people there's a parking ban? Because like in Portland, if there's a parking ban, they
There's
put it
blue
out there,
lights
there's a parking
everywhere.
ban. So if there's a night where we're going to tow people, how do we notify people that, hey, you got to get your cars off the street tonight?
I think we have to make a reasonable effort, and we are making that reasonable effort to notify people. This is Maine, this is Waterville, it snows here, we've been plowing the roads for as long as I've been here, and people that live here realize that, you know, they get up in the morning and their roads are plowed. So some of this is incumbent upon them to learn what the parking ban is. And I think we do a good job in advertising. We do all the social media. We do the newspapers. We put out warnings. I'm not sure what else we could do other than start knocking on everybody's door.
no, and I understand that, and I, you know, I'll be honest with you, I don't even know, I don't even know what the legal section is in the paper. I'll be honest with you. So there's no way that I'm reading it, and you know, I would say that a lot of folks in, you know, in our community might not be very savvy Facebookers, or, you know, I need to go to the website, you know what I mean, for this information. It's more of a communication thing. Like, we just got snow the other day. I mean, it's here. Like, you know, now we're making this change now. I mean, it's November, you know, so we're making this change, you know, within the next 30 days, and to make sure that we get that communicate. Like, $130, you know, with 30 days notice is a lot to bear with, you know, everything else that's going on in a, you know, in this COVID scenario, and, you know, as we enter, you know, the holiday. I mean, that's my only concern. I want you guys to be as efficient as possible, but yeah, I mean, I just don't know whether or not we have the, I don't know that I'm confident in the plan to communicate as effectively as we possibly can to avoid any such incident. I mean, they're going to happen. I absolutely understand that, but I don't know. That's just my concern at this point.
Councilor Frankie, did you have something?
Yes, it seems to me that the Director of Public Works has forgotten that he's here to serve the public, not for his own convenience. I simply think that this is a bad idea, and I'm going to vote against this because I think that it's way too heavy of a hand, police hand, on the people of Waterville.
Councilor Foss.
I'm good.
In fairness to Matt, I apologize, Claude. I totally disagree that that he's lost sight as to whether or not he's serving the public. You know, because one of the things that we ask him to do is to be as efficient as possible. And you know, when he comes to us with efficiencies and the ability and time spent waiting for somebody to move a car when they can continue to plow another street or make 2 passes versus the one, I don't think I think that's a poor characterization as to his realization of what he is employed to do. So I'm sorry, I disagree with that statement.
Okay, I'm gonna let the public get into this first, and then we'll come back to the councilors. Jay's been waiting to speak, and then we'll get to Rebecca.
Matt, I'm specifically talking about the south end. We have the ball field right there. Are they going to be able to park there?
That's,
I mean, to get people that live on that part of town to go park at Head of Falls and then walk all the way back seems excessive, especially with some of those people living down there are seniors. I don't think there's going to be a lot of demand for the ball field during the winter time. I'm wondering if we can sort of use part of that parking lot for people to be able to bring their cars down there so that you can do the roads, and then everybody leaves for the day and somebody takes a swipe at that and off you go for the next day.
yeah, that could be a good option for that area. Yeah.
I mean, it certainly would be good to identify, you know, in certain neighborhoods, like here's a place where you can go and your car's off the street, and maybe those places you've got to be out of there by 6 in the morning or something, so that you can then go in and do that for people. I don't know if we're probably not gonna work that all out here at the meeting, so I don't want to go too deep down that discussion. Rebecca, did you have something?
Yeah, a couple things. I just wanted to say, first of all, a big part of this is, I think, communication, right? I mean, and I saw something on Facebook when it was announced that this would be discussed, and you know, one comment was, "Oh, don't we already have that parking ban?" You know, so I personally think that whatever we do, it's really important to be proactive about communicating, because I agree people aren't reading the legal section. A lot of people don't have Facebook, so we have to really make sure that people know what the regulation is, first of all, and then also understand why we're asking them to do this if we go ahead. So I'm wondering if there's some sort of quantifiable benefit too in terms of efficiency. Like, are we saving money? Is this going to mean we have, you know, more funds for public works in the budget if we're being more efficient with snow removal? And then the other thing I wanted to say is I really do think it's important for people who really have no other option than the street to make some alternative possible. So I agree with Jay, you know, we can't ask people to walk from South End to Head of Falls to park their car. So the ball field is a great idea. I really think it's important to have something like that if we're going to go ahead with the ban.
Councilor Foss?
2 quick things. Chief, you said you give out warning tickets for the first 2 weeks.
Yes.
Mike, do you need us to give you approval to put money towards Facebook ads, seeing as how I know that $50 will buy us a lot of space on Facebook?
Yep, nope, you don't need to.
Thank you.
We can do it right out of our advertising budget, and I certainly intend to do it. It's a good idea.
Okay.
What we also do in the newspaper is we buy a block ad, so it's not in the legal. I mean,
I do know where those are.
you do know where
I
those are.
found them, but
But we buy a block ad in the newspaper. There's something like this for a few days.
And if any, I mean, I certainly know plenty about advertising on social media, so if anybody needs help figuring out how to do that, I'm happy to volunteer. Any other, Counselor Klepak?
Yeah. I liked the suggestion from the counselor. I'm sorry, I am just meeting you. I don't know your name yet. The guy with the glasses over there. Yeah, I don't think you were suggesting that having the lights flash across town, but I did live downtown for a while during this period, and lived with the sign that the chief would put up telling people that they couldn't park in the concourse during a snowstorm. That was effective communication. And I wonder, are there ways of being efficient about this? Having our cake and eating it too, so to speak. Street lights rather than flashing, which obviously seems like an absurd idea, but you know, maybe changing the hue from a white to an amber color or something like that. I don't know whether they're LEDs or not, but certainly if they are, that's the kind of technology that exists. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that, you know, it does seem like it's a matter of communicating effectively to the people on the night that there is going to be an issue, that they need to move their vehicle, and it sort of limits the burden that we're putting on the community members. Because I think we can all agree that in the best possible world, it would be one where people can park when it's not an issue, and then they can get their butts out of the way when they have to make room for Matt. And I think Matt's team, it's a totally legitimate and important need that his department has to be able to execute their duty as efficiently as possible. Those are real people too, and it's very frustrating for them to have to deal with this issue. I don't know, it just seems like perhaps you know, maybe even thinking about this in terms of like a windowed approach where we approve the resolution now to revert, but with the intention to explore options down the road when we're going to face the inevitable pushback from the community that you know, that this ban is going to impose. I don't know. It just seems like we can come to some sort of resolution that makes it good for everybody.
Anybody else from the council? I guess just as one final thought, what I would say is I think I'm willing to vote to approve this tonight, but what I'd like for you to do is to think about, you know, for example, can we identify places in neighborhoods that make it more convenient for people, a place where they can park during those hours? I don't know that it'll be possible everywhere, but wherever we can identify city-owned property that these people might be able to park on. And then, I mean, we had this discussion, I had this discussion with Mike a while ago about the parking tickets. Could we make up, if we do identify such places, we make up something that the police, while they're basically warning people that this is coming, a map that says, you can't park on the street, but here's where you can.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Park.
Yeah, it is.
And with that, I'll go one more time. Anybody from the council? All right, we'll move to a roll call.
Council Morris?
Yes.
Council Oliveira?
Yes.
Council Klepak?
Yes.
Council Foss?
Yes.
Council Frankie?
No.
Council Thomas?
Yes.
The vote is 5 in favor and 1 opposed.
Moving on to Order 247-2020.
An order providing for sale of city property, 70 Violet Avenue.
Move to adopt.
Second. Mike, do you just want to sum this up and then?
Yes. Both this one and the next one, 70 Violet Ave and 3 Abbott Street, were both sold or auctioned off. Of course, the council decides whether it's sold or not. But we went the auction route for the first time, and I think it was a very, very successful way to do it. We're very pleased with the prices we got especially on Violet Ave, and the other one on Abbott Street, which was really in much worse condition. Didn't bring as much, but certainly it was an efficient way to get the properties off our hands and back on the tax rolls. That's the key. Get them back on the tax rolls.
Any questions, comments from the council? Councilor Frankie.
Just a quick question, Mike. When you show the auction price and then you show the net that the city gets after taxes and fees, is that back taxes that the city will get from that?
Are we going to get back taxes from them, from the sale that covers
Yes.
that?
The net includes the deduction from the sale price of the back taxes, so we reimburse ourselves for the amount of the back taxes.
Mike, where is Violet Ave? It's in the...
Where?
Sydney's ward office, first range.
Matthews Ave and...
Okay.
It's one that Councilor Mayhew had worked on for many, took us a long time.
Does this money just go into the general fund? Because
No.
I know, for example, just so councilors know, in the south end, we have a South End Neighborhood Improvement Fund.
This is, right.
And any foreclosures in the south end, when they're sold, we subtract the taxes, anything that's due, and then the excess funds generally go into the south end fund.
Correct.
But do we have something similar in this neighborhood or no, Mike?
So these, both these sales proceeds would go into the Capital Improvement Reserve Fund. The city's been doing that for quite a while now. It's certainly a big help. Where we have unforeseen equipment needs during the year, we don't have a budget for it, a truck breakdown, a boiler repair in the fire station, things like that. Proceeds into that reserve fund, and of course, before any money is spent out of that fund, the council has to approve it.
Any comments or questions from the council? All right, we'll move to a roll call.
Councilor Morris?
Yes.
Councilor Olivera?
Yes.
Councilor Klepak?
Yes.
Councilor Voss?
Yes.
Councilor Frankie?
Yes.
Councilor Thomas?
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Moving on to order number 248-2020.
An order providing for sale of city property 3 Abbott Street.
Move to adopt.
Second. Any discussion from the council? Mike, go ahead.
I just want to add 2 things. Number 1, for the 2 new councilors, an order requires 2 votes. So you'll see these same 2 items next council meeting. They'll be in the unfinished business category. So any ordinance or order requires 2 votes. So, as a matter of fact, the ordinance that you just acted on for streets and sidewalks has to come back for a second vote at your next meeting. The second thing I want to say is our tax collector, Linda Cody, is here tonight, and she deserves all the credit for getting these properties through the auction process. The first time we used this, we were given a heads up by one of the people who usually buys foreclosed properties from us and said, you're losing out if you don't try the auction route, which we did, and I think Linda will admit it certainly was the way to go than the way we had been doing it. We may still list some properties with a broker, those that are in really good shape. These were good candidates for it, and it worked out, so I wanted to thank Linda for her work.
Any comment from the council or the public?
When did you get to those properties? How much
What?
did you get from auction for those properties?
Oh, I'm sorry. The first one, $99,500. $99,500.
That's a duplex.
Actually, single family.
Okay.
Yep. The one on Abbott Street,
Violet Avenue is a 2-family.
it's a 2-family. But it hadn't been used as a 2-family for quite a while, or had it?
It has.
It had, okay, all right, sorry. That's why we have Linda coordinate these sales, not me.
Thank you, Linda.
The Abbott Street, you know, we had that assessed at 70, and we got 44. That's much rougher neighborhood,
One last question, that capital improvement fund that you put this money into,
right?
is that included in our 12%?
That in capital improvement fund is reserve fund, so it's not included in the 12% surplus balance that we try to maintain. I don't believe so. I'd want to double check to be sure, but as a reserve fund, well, no, actually, I'll find out. Good question.
Just so new counselors know, the city has a policy in place that states that we keep 12% of our operating budget on reserve in the bank so that we're ready in case of some sort of emergency. And that's just a city policy. It's not something required by the state, but it affects our credit rating when we go out to bond. Any other comments from the council or the public? We'll move to a roll call.
Council Morris?
Yes.
Council Olivera?
Yes.
Council Klepak?
Yes.
Council Foss?
Yes.
Council Frankie?
Yes.
Council Thomas?
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Order 249-2020.
An order providing for sale of lot in Airport Road subdivision.
Move to adopt.
Second.
And I'd ask you to insert the amount, because I think there's a blank in that order of $137,760 is the amount. This is, of course, the property we talked about, Casella.
I would offer that as an amendment.
Seconded.
Any discussion on the amendment? Roll call on the amendment.
Council Morris?
Yes.
Council Olivera?
Yes.
Council Klepak?
Yes.
Council Foss?
Yes.
Council Frankie?
Yes.
Council Thomas?
Yes, and I will move the order as amended.
Seconded.
Any discussion on the actual order? And I would remind people again, this is an order, so this is just a first vote. People will have a chance to do more research, raise concerns, follow up on some of the things that we discussed in our executive session. But that said, Councilor Klepak?
So I just want to clarify the numbers. My understanding is that it was 135,760 for lot 40, and that there was some agreement to have 1,000 per acre for the additional chunk here, the 6.75 acres. Am I misunderstanding that?
Yes, I did say 135 earlier, but I was mistaken. The list price for 140, for lot 40, is what they agreed to pay, and that list price is 137,760. And I was recommending that we not include an amount for the 6.75 acres, that we include that acreage in the total to be sold to them.
Right, we had asked them for $1,000 an acre. They came back and asked us to throw it in with the sale of the other property. And I don't know if everyone has that map in front of them, but the extra 6.75 acres would sort of be landlocked at that point. No one else would really be able to do anything with it.
Even if we got Metro Road around there,
right,
we're done.
Go ahead, Tom.
Okay. This is true. It's not commercially developed, able to be commercially developed, but that's not to say that that chunk of land is not providing a service. Streams in the town. There's another beaver stream in the Arb, and that piece of property does offer ecosystem services in terms of nutrient uptake and the quality of water that is eventually put into the river through the watershed there. So I mean, it's easy to think of that as just a waste piece of landlocked property, but it is serving a purpose for the Waterville community, whether they appreciate it or not.
Councilor Frankie?
Yeah, I think Tom makes a excellent point. There's no particular reason for us to give it away. Casella doesn't need it for anything, do they?
What was that?
Casella doesn't need it for anything, do they?
Well, the wetlands offset, right? I mean, you know, they can say that they're protecting wetlands.
Mike, do you know, do they intend to build on that piece of land? Do they just want it for?
No, they don't intend to build. We did talk about it briefly. They just wanted to be able to have it as a buffer for both lots, where the current transfer station is and where lot 40 is. So this land abuts both of those pieces. This would be an important buffer for them to have.
So you believe that the condition of the property, I mean, obviously they're going to run into, you know, environmental regulations anyway, should they try to build on wetland. But you think their intention is to just use that as a buffer, not to actually build anything on it, or?
That's my understanding, is a for buffer, but I can't guarantee you they won't use it in the future. I can't.
But whatever they would do would have to comply with environmental
Absolutely.
regulations.
Right.
And I assume a transfer station is subject to lots of regulations.
Lots of review, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is my concern is when we were talking about the per ton fee that is levied on them, and if we were to remove that sort of break, or I don't want to call it a break, but an economic gauge on the tonnage that's moving through that facility, that is directly adjacent to not just a wetland, but a wetland that's part of the watershed that feeds directly into the river. There are consequences to that land use there that I think need to be at least acknowledged.
Yeah, and I'm sure we could probably get some clarification through Don. If there's specific questions that you have, Don might be able to pass them on to Casella about what their plans are.
I can question them again.
And I would just remind people, again, this is something we're going to vote on twice, so we're going to have a chance to offer amendments, possibly negotiate some other things in the next couple of weeks. Mike's going to follow up on all the things that we discussed earlier that we asked him to. So the vote tonight is really to move it to the next vote, just to be clear. And everyone will have a chance to have their say again on this at the next meeting. Anybody else from the council? Anybody from the public? All right, we'll take a roll call.
Council Morris?
Yes.
Council Olivera?
Yes.
Council Klepak?
Yes.
Council Foss?
Yes.
Council Frankie?
Yes.
Council Thomas?
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Make a motion we remove cloture to accept Councilor Mayhew's resignation and to declare the Ward 4 seat vacant.
I would second the motion to waive cloture. So we're waiving cloture just so we can bring up an item that was not on the agenda. So the first vote is on whether or not we're going to waive cloture to add this item to the agenda. Patty?
Roll call. Council Morris?
Yes.
Council Olivera?
Yes.
Council Klepak?
Yes.
Council Foss?
Yes.
Council Frankie?
Yes.
Council Thomas?
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed. Shall I read it?
Yep.
Resolution 250-2020, a resolution providing for declaring a vacancy for City Council seat in Ward 4. Be
Move
it
to-
resolved, shall I continue? Be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Waterville, acting as the municipal officers as follows, that the City Council seat for Ward 4 is hereby declared vacant due to the resignation of Sidney Mayhew, effective November 4, 2020.
Move to adopt.
Second. Counselor Foss?
I know Councilor Mayhew is not here tonight. Thank you, Councilor, for everything you've done. I want to say that, you know, I've talked to Sid a few times on things that I may have been able to sway his opinion on, and he held firm to his belief, even against, you know, my wishes. He represented his ward the way he knew his ward. So I'm disheartened that he resigned, but we are at this point. So I want to say thank you to Councilor Mayhew for everything he's done for the last 6 years.
And I would just second those sentiments. I mean, in my time on the council, actually, ironically, it was Councilor Mayhew who beat me when I was the Ward 4 City Councilor before. So I want to say my time working with Sydney, there's nobody worked harder as a city councilor, and nobody did more outreach to their ward, and nobody cared more about this city than Sid does. So it's certainly sad to see him go prematurely, although we would like to welcome new councilor eventually. And just to be clear, so people know, procedurally in our charter, even though we just had an election and Rebecca Green was elected for this seat, the charter requires that because the seat became open prior to the end of Sydney's term, technically we would be required to publicly advertise the position, and then possibly anyone we would appoint would come out of that pool of people. So just if people see, we have to go through the formality of the procedure. So if people see an opening advertised for Ward 4, it's a technical thing that we have to do. We have somebody who was just elected, so once we go through the technical process, we will appoint the duly elected councilor from Ward 4. That said, anything else from the rest of the council? All right, we'll move to a roll call.
Councilor Morris?
Yep.
Councilor Oliveira?
Yes.
Councilor Klepak?
Indeed.
Councilor Foss?
Yes.
Councilor Frankie?
Yes.
Councilor Thomas?
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Okay, so next is councilor updates. Do any city councilors have an update? We'll start with Councilor Foss.
Not so much an update, but I have a question for Mr. Roy. The capital improvement fund balance, do you have that off the top of your head? Or could we for the next meeting? What that looks like?
It'll have to be for the next meeting.
That's fine.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Frankie?
I just think that we should give a big hand and certainly heartfelt acknowledgement of the hard work that Patty Dubois and her team of in the clerk's office did with the election yesterday. That was outstanding work, Patty. Please convey that to the rest of your staff.
Thank you. If I could just follow up with that comment, I thank you for those kind words. I really want to acknowledge all the folks that helped. It was a Herculean task, I would say. It's the hardest thing I've ever had to organize in my career, but certainly I don't do it alone. I want to acknowledge Sarah Cross. Sarah's a rock star, and she was right beside me the whole time, and I really appreciate that. So just the school department for allowing us the use of the space and the shuttle and the janitorial staff, Parks and Rec, Public Works, setting up signs, everything we asked them to do. The assessor's office helped us with printing signs, police department with traffic and security at the polls, IT with laptops and security, the janitors at City Hall working late, keeping the building open, extra cleaning and sanitizing for us, finance staff helping out and letting us do the other parts of our job and not wait on the window, admin for the support Mike always provides, and additional outreach to the public through Facebook and the website, and election staff volunteers. A lot of the normal folks that we use at the polling place were unavailable for this election because of the COVID situation. So we had a lot of new staff that came forward. We had more folks come forward than we actually could use, which was a nice position to be in. But these were new folks that we didn't know at all. We didn't know whether they would show up at training or whether they would show up on election day. And I would say that we met some fantastic people and they did an outstanding job. And I want to acknowledge all of them. We've probably had 50 or 60 people that have worked for us over the last month in and out of, you know, processing absentees and at City Hall and at the polls and, you know, voter registration and election day duties, out in the cold all day on election day, directing traffic. I mean, it was just, you know, an outstanding job. So, I mean, I would recognize Roland and Joanne Halley, who are in charge at the polling place. Tim, Tammy, John, and Dan, they all had higher responsibilities. And then at City Hall, we had Mary, Julie, Paula, Jeff, Tammy, Miranda, Camille, Pam, and Ron that worked in and out of the office with absentees. Also Mary at the office. So I would just say, you know, it was a huge administrative task, and I'm just thankful that I had everyone to help. For what it's worth, it's the highest turnout that I've seen in my years here with the city. 8,013 votes cast, 6,068 by absentee ballot returned. 1945 showed up at the polls to vote. So as we kind of predicted months ago, 75% of the turnout was by absentee ballot, 25% at the polls. So it was a great day. Things went really well. We sent in our results to the state today, and so we're going to put this one away. So I thank everyone for all the help.
Patty, can we put together a formal thank you, put it on the website and the city page, you know, as just to throw it up there and all the names and stuff listed in.
I would love to do that. Maybe some type of a proclamation, either from the council or the mayor, just acknowledging and recognizing all these folks.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was. We had a lot of younger people helping out too at the polls, and they were amazingly appreciative of the opportunity, and it was nice to see some younger people involved. So yeah, I would love to recognize everyone more formally. So I'd be happy to put that together.
Thanks for all your hard work, Patty.
Yeah, it wasn't me alone.
You too, Sarah.
And you think we'd be nice and not make you come to a council meeting the
I
next
know,
day.
what the
but-
heck? Here I am. I'd like to get home by 9 though.
Well, that brings me to my next topic. It's going to be about a 45-minute.
In other words,
Mike,
Patty's saying
don't take your time
don't
doing your
talk too
update,
much.
okay? Just saying.
So next would be community notes. Are there any community notes? Seeing none, the manager's report. And
None.
Just in case you didn't catch that, Patty said wrap it up fast.
Yep, that definitely had an effect.
She warned you earlier, didn't she?
Oh, yeah. Sure.
Counselor Frankie, did you have something?
I have a question for the city manager. Where do we stand with the bill grant?
Where do we stand with
Build
the...
grant.
Build grant.
Oh, the bill grant. Okay, we just finished a schedule of the entire bill grant project, all the timeline, and all the key dates, and with that is the budget for the total project, all on one sheet, which I will get to you. But to answer your question about what happens next, because the bill grant project, the $11 million project, is out to bid. So on November 20, the bids are due. So on your December 1st, I think it is, meeting, you'll see something on your agenda, probably proposing to accept a bid to hire a contractor that would begin that project in the spring. The other key thing that you'll also see on December 1st is a separate item to hire a engineering consultant. As part of this $11 million project, the city is going to need to hire an engineering firm to help manage the construction out in the field. The cost of that work is going to come from the bill grant funds itself, so that's not any additional money. So the next big milestone for the Ville grant is December 1, well, November 20, when the bids come in, and then on December 1, you'll get a chance to act on that, I hope.
Go ahead,
Yes.
Claude.
And is there a place where councilors can go to take a look at the proposal, the bid proposal?
Is there a place you can go to see the bid proposal?
Yes.
Best place would be City Hall. The bid proposals has a copy of the plans rolled that's about that big around, and a spec book that's about that thick. Got a bunch of copies right there on the mayoral conference room table. So people are welcome to come in, but it's quite a maze to get through it. But you're welcome to come in. Obviously it's there, and that's why it's there.
Well, the reason I ask, Mike, is we've got a couple of new people that may be interested in some of the details. So I just want to let them know that they can come to you, and you've got all the details.
And,
Yes, thank you, Claude. I think I'd like to have time with Thomas and with Rebecca between now and then to just bring them up to speed on what this project is going to be.
yes, and I've reached out to both of the new counselors about, I think probably what it'll end up being is a meeting with myself and with Mike to just sort of, you know, give them a chance to ask questions, talk about committees that might be open that they might want to slot into, you know, offer whatever updates we can give on what's been going on, and then, like I said, really just give them a chance to ask questions about anything that they may have questions about. So as much as possible, we can get them up, start getting them up to speed on where things are, because there's going to be a lot happening soon. Anything else?
Can't wait to read it.
All right, I'd make a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
All in favor? Thanks, guys.